Welcome to Night Chemistry, your candlelit refuge beneath the stars. Here we mix gentle science with soothing storytelling to guide you into restful sleep. Tonight's journey is a detective mystery tale entitled To the Case of the Cursed Caesium Clock. Find a comfortable position, soften your breath, and let your thoughts dissolve like mist in moonlight. Prologue, Phantom Ticks. The long glass spine of Mount Tarn Observatory rose against a moonless sky like the hand of a frozen clock. Inside, only the frequency standard wing was awake. Corridors lit by single sodium bulbs, compressors humming faint bass notes, and the soft, metronomic click of relays that kept the observatory's caesium-beam clock in step with the universe. Or so everyone believed. At 0:07, that certainty shattered. A warning tone bloomed over the public address speakers. Two dissonant beeps, 1 second apart, then silence. In the master control bay, a line of green LEDs dipped to amber, then red. The atomic clock, the heartbeat for radio beacons, GPS corrections, and trading algorithms across the region, had just lost 3 minutes. Not drifted, not nudged, but dropped them like a pocket watch plunged into water. Chief Metrologist Dr. Elise Bauer stared at the anomaly readout, pulse hammering in her ears. Caesium clocks did not skip. If their hyper-fine transitions wavered, the fault was minuscule. Nanoseconds, never minutes. She reached for the phone. Instead of dialing maintenance, she called a man who solved problems with reagents and instincts in equal measure. Arthur Langley arrived 40 minutes later, tan trench coat snapping in the mountain wind. Dawn was still a rumor below the horizon. Frost etched the guardrail cables, and the scent of ozone lingered at the loading bay doors. He tasted metal on the air, ionization, maybe, or the aftertrace of short arc. Inside, Bauer's team crowded around sealed windows overlooking the time cavity, a coffin-sized stainless steel chamber lined with moo metal shielding. Through the observation port, Langley saw faint scratches on the inner glass, as if molten sand had bubbled against it and cooled too fast. Tiny silver-gold globules clung to the sill, droplets that should have combusted on contact with air, but instead sat inert, glinting like dew. "Metallic caesium," he muttered, drawing a sterile swab from his pocket. The bead smeared along the cotton tip with oily reluctance, leaving a hairline tear in the glass. "Fresh leak." Bauer's voice quavered. "There's no free caesium in the cavity, only vapor lamps inside quartz ampoules. If one shattered, the getter should have locked it down. Unless that ampoule held something it shouldn't." Langley knelt, nose inches from the viewport. The air smelled wrong, singed silica and hot dust, plus that persistent hint of lightning. He imagined caesium reacting with traces of moisture in the vacuum lines, producing caesium hydroxide and hydrogen, spiking pressure, scrambling microwave resonances, and kicking the master oscillator off its perch. 3 minutes gone in a gulp of alkali fire. He stood, locked the chamber power, sealed ventilation to independent scrubbers. "No one touches a cavity until I sample those droplets." Bauer adjusted her glasses, trying to steady her hands. "You think sabotage?" "I think someone swapped ultra-pure CS for something nastier. And I want to know why they needed a clock to hiccup exactly 3 minutes." From a hallway behind them, a fuse blew, plunging half the bay into gloom. Emergency LEDs flickered to life, casting Langley's shadow across a bank of oscilloscopes now jittering with static. Deep in the observatory, relays clicked offbeat, an arrhythmia spreading through cables like a whispered rumor. Langley exhaled through his teeth. Timing was everything, in physics and in crime. Tonight, someone had pulled at time zone threads, and the fabric was fraying. He pulled out his field notebook, flipped to a fresh page, and wrote one word beneath the date. Caesium. The investigation had begun. Chapter 1, Tickless Time. The calibration lab lay 2 levels below the public galleries, accessible only by a badge lock lift that muttered like a tired metronome as it descended. Arthur Langley stepped out into a corridor tiled with pale ceramic squares, their gloss dulled by decades of anti-static wax. Fluorescent tubes buzzed overhead. Every 20 meters, a red LED flashed the slogan, "And no magnets, and no moisture, and no mistakes." Dr. Elise Bauer hurried beside him, clutching a clipboard whose top sheet displayed an error log dense with time codes. Dr. Lili Kozar, summoned by Langley en route, trailed them both, portable gamma counters swinging from her shoulder like a camera bag. They reached an airlock door emblazoned Class 100 clean zone. Inside, laminar hoods whispered down from the ceiling, stirring the scent of isopropyl and ozone. Rows of copper-shielded racks house the observatory's lesser clocks, oven-control quartz, rubidium vapor. Even a trio of aging hydrogen masers, each enslaved to the cesium master upstairs. None showed the 3-minute loss. Instead, their displays blinked out OFSYNC like orphan chicks cheeping for a parent. Local oscillators obey the cesium tick, Bauer said, voice muffled by her papery mask. When it skipped, they froze, waiting for correction. Langley leaned close to a quartz unit. Its LCD stalled at 10 minutes and 47 seconds, though his wristwatch read nearly 0:15. "Tickless children," he muttered, straightening. "Let's find a rogue parent." At the rear of the lab, a thick quartz viewport revealed a small annex dubbed the Cesium Service Bay. Here, technicians replaced exhausted beam tubes, polished microwave cavities, and, crucially, broke the vacuum only under triple interlock. Tonight, the bay's interior lights glared against smeared glass. Something had splashed the window in iridescent gold-silver flecks, as if molten metal had kissed and cooled. Kozar pressed her gamma probe against the viewport. The digital chirp remained flat. No hard gammas. So far, just stable superscript 1, superscript 3, superscript 3CS, if it is cesium. Langley unclipped a fiber optic inspection scope and threaded it to a utility port normally reserved for cavity alignment. Inside, the beam tube cradle, an Invar chassis shaped like a tuning fork, sat empty. Steel clamps gaped like open jaws. Their nylon shims were seared, edges crisp to charcoal. "Tube's gone," he reported. "Someone removed it after the event. Or before." Bauer paled. Removal without rad tag and chain of custody would trigger half the alarms in this building, unless the system believed it was still in place. Langley gestured to a nearby terminal. "Show me the maintenance log." Bauer tapped frantic keys. The holographic display populated with green check marks. Tube A, operational. Tube B, standby, last visual inspection time-stamped yesterday, 1830. Yet the cradle before them yawned empty. "Forged heartbeat," Langley said. "A spoof packet feeding the control bus. All good, nothing to see. Easy if you wire in a dummy load and replay yesterday's status frames." Kozar knelt beneath the viewport. Scorch marks radiated across the anti-static matting in fractal starbursts. At their center lay a pea-sized bead of dull silver. She touched the pipette tip to it. The metal squirmed away, hissing faintly. Even under inert gas at cesium hated restraint. "Still reactive," she said, "but surface tarnish is minimal, minutes old, not hours." Langley's eyes narrowed. Leak and theft nearly simultaneous. Whoever took the beam tube ruptured it on purpose, or botched the swap so badly the ampoule broke. Bauer shook her head. "They'd need level for credentials to open that cradle." "Or level 0 ambition," Langley replied. "Someone with root access to the building's heartbeat." He popped the viewport latch. Nitrogen purged the chamber with a sigh. Gloved, he reached inside and plucked 3 droplets into borosilicate ampoules pre-filled with mineral oil. The beads wriggled like living mercury, then settled, tamed by the anhydrous bath. Kozar's gaze drifted to a cardboard box half pushed under a workstation. That wasn't here at last shift. She slid it out. Styrofoam moldings for shipping a replacement beam tube, still sealed. The shipping manifest sticker read, Microchron Labs, received 1905. Signature space was blank. "So they never installed a new tube," Langley said, "meaning the master clock is running on an empty cavity." Tricked into believing his atoms to interrogate, it free ran until phase noise drove it over a cliff. 3 full minutes. Kozar unfolded a fresh nitrile swab, wiping the barcode on the shipping label. A smear of graphite gray came away. Spray paint residue used to fog security cameras. Somebody killed the CCTV feed, forged an install log, yanked a hot tube, and walked out. Bauer hugged her clipboard. A beam tube is just quartz, getters, and a few milligrams of cesium. Why steal it? Langley glanced at his oil ampoule where silver beads shimmered like tiny suns. Because in the right hands, those milligrams can hijack every time-stamped transaction in the city, or worse. And if they switched and react away cesium rather than stable metal, we're talking gamma-blinded sensors, false time sync, even radiation blackmail. Kozar's gamma counter crackled. A single spike, then monotone again. She swept the probe over the scorch mat. The needle jumped at a dark stain no larger than a coin. Hot spot, she murmured. 137, maybe 134. She lifted the smear with adhesive tape and sealed it. Somebody mixed isotopes. This was deliberate. The corridor lights flickered. A UPS relay clacked like distant castanets. On the monitoring wall, every secondary clock now lagged by 3 minutes plus 10 microseconds. Time was still unraveling, thread by thread. Langley straightened, trench coat rustling. Lock this floor, pull access logs, and give me the staff roster for the last 24 hours, especially radiation licensed personnel. Bauer nodded, clinging to the order like a life ring. Kozar snapped her sample box shut. Where to next? Spectroscopy, Langley said. If that stolen tube contains reactor cesium, we'll see fission daughters in the spectrum. And then we start following the glow. He strode toward the exit. Behind him, the line of orphan clocks kept blinking, lost in their parentless night. Each silent second reminder that time, like alkali metal, burns brightest when someone dares to break the glass. Chapter 2, Seconds in the Spectrum. The cyclotron annex at West March University was an island of quiet in an otherwise riotous campus. On Saturday night, students flooded the quad for outdoor films and late summer masquerades. But 3 stories below, the radiochemistry suite glowed with the faint blue sheen at your rink of lamps and the steady hum of lead glass shielding doors. Arthur Langley signed a radiation log, initials AL, dosimeter 00421, then waited while Dr Lili Kozar did the same. A technician in a cobalt apron ushered them through 2 labyrinthine barriers into spectroscopy room 3. The air smelled of chilled water and plastic film, the way hospitals do after midnight. At the far end sat a high-purity germanium detector the size of a water heater, its cryostat shrouded in styrofoam. A computer monitor atop, it displayed a dormant spectrum. Flat green baseline. No peaks. Lily powered it up. A violin of fans spun to life. Behind her, Arthur set his padded sample case on a steel bench marked R82.8 SV Max. Background first, Lily said, sliding a sodium iodide puck into the detector well. The monitor scrolled, a gentle hump near 1460 keV. The natural potassium line. Then nothing. Counts clean. Arthur unlatched the case and removed the first of 3 oil-filled ampoules collected from the observatory. Even through the glass, he could see tiny silver beads dancing like mercury. Where the oil thinned, a faint bronze film formed, the first oxide skins of cesium against any trace moisture still dissolved in the solvent. They capped the ampoule inside a secondary acrylic cup, placed it on the lit platform, and lowered it into the detector shield. Lily spun the countdown wheel. Live time 300S. The monitor ticked upward, raw data streaming as lime green spikes. 10 seconds in, a column burst at 662 keV, tall, knife-edged. Lily's brows arched. CS 137 unmistakable. Another followed at 32 keV, the barium X-ray daughter. Then a smaller one at 795 keV. Compton backscatter. Arthur exhaled through his teeth. Spent medical source, not stable metal. Look at activity. She overlaid a library curve, then calculated efficiency. Roughly 400 kBq in this single droplet set, maybe 6 months out of a hospital linac. Arthur recalled Bauer's empty cradle, the forged heartbeat, enough gamma to blind photodiodes if aimed into the cavity, skewing the microwave pump. Counts climbed further, a low shelf at 511 keV, annihilation photons. Either Bremsstrahlung at the leak, Lili said, or someone's got beta emitters mixed in. She opened a VOI, visual of interest, window, zooming the low-energy tail. Peaks at 185 keV and 239 keV. Telltale of you, 235 daughters. Spent research fuel, 2. Whoever did the scavenge multiple waste streams. Arthur's phone vibrated. Text from Elise Bauer. System still slipping. 3 minutes plus 22.4 S. HVAC shows ionization spike in south vent. Fire crew reporting blue glow in old subway line. He showed the screen to Lili. She whistled softly. Ionist air plus gamma equals corona discharge. That explains the ozone smell at Mount Tarn. Arthur folded his arms. And the ghost lights commuters saw on line 6 yesterday. He turned toward the technician. We need permission to run ICP-MS on these beads, isolate isotopic ratios. Granted, the tech said, half amused. Tonight, the beam time's yours. While Lili prepped the second ampoule, Arthur paced the lab. On a whiteboard near the entry, someone had scribbled Decay-Chain's Never Lie beside a doodle of a skull wearing a party hat. The phrase echoed in his mind. You could falsify logs, forge signatures, spoof data packets, but isotopic fingerprints were stubborn truths. The second sample revealed a hot cocktail, CS 134, Ba 133, traces of Co 60, a jigsaw from several waste archives. Lili overlaid decay curves. The combined gamma yield matched the dose spike Kozar had measured on the observation mat. They took everything dirty they could lift, she concluded, refined enough metallic cesium to stay fusible, then spiked it with gamma emitters. To what end? Arthur mused. A 3-minute hiccup is vandalism, blending isotopes hints at greater harm. They loaded the final ampoule. Even before the shield closed, the Geiger pre-alarm clicked. Inside, the germanium plot lit like fireworks. Not 662 keV this time, but a forest of lines centered at 173 keV and 332 keV. Co 60 in full voice. Cobalt rods from industrial radiography, Lili said, voice now tight. Intense short half-life, easy to hide in shielding. Our thief doesn't just want to scramble clocks. They want to flood sensors. Arthur pictured shielded lead coffers in a subway tunnel, gamma plumes wafting up elevator shafts, feeding corona glows that would mesmerize late-night pedestrians, whispering attractions to draw crowds, and somewhere, a control room counting down for a second larger phase. He took out his field notebook, underlined cesium, and added plus cobalt 60, plus mixed waste. Underneath, he wrote a single question. Why 3 minutes? Lili sealed the cobalt ampoule in triple bag and slipped it into a lead pig no bigger than a coffee mug. With this activity, 1 pig buys you only half an hour at legal dose rates, she warned. He nodded. Plenty for a subway ride. She pulled up a campus land map on a side terminal. University's decommissioned line 6 spurs off under the Arts District. There's a utility hatch connecting the tunnel to the old medical physics basement. If someone stored waste there, Arthur finished the thought. They had key card access and a short wheelbarrow pushed straight into the line. The lab phone rang. The technician picked up, then gestured. Front desk for you. Arthur answered. A thin, anxious voice. Security Chief Bremer from the City Transit Authority. Detective Langley? Our track team just reported blue flashes in Tunnel 6, Section Delta. Lights flickering like Jacob's ladders. They say the air smells like fireworks. How long ago? 10 minutes. We evacuated patrol, but there are maintenance contractors still inside. Arthur met Lili's gaze. Tunnel 6, Section Delta? She brought up a GIS overlay of subway map versus old cyclotron waste tunnels. Section Delta aligned within meters of the medical physics vault. Arthur closed the call. We move now. Geigers, LED torches, magnetic field blankets. And I-1 has tech on standby for a hot extraction. He turned to the technician. Print 2 quick autorads on those CS samples. We'll need to show command the glow. While Lili collected the auto-radiographs, ghostly silhouettes of silver beads burning white on black film, Arthur packed the lead pigs into a foam-lined messenger bag. The weight bit into his shoulder like a guilty conscience. As they left spectroscopy room 3, the germanium detector kept counting in the dark, plotting the after-echoes of forbidden decay. Somewhere under the city, stolen seconds and stolen isotopes were converging, rewriting time's covenant with the people above. Langley quickened his stride. Every tick and tock felt heavier now, as if the minutes themselves were isotopes, unstable, eager to break apart. The chase had found its glow. He and Lili would follow it into the depths. Chapter 3, Radiant Mirage. The maintenance elevator rattled to a halt 50 meters below street level, its cage door sighing open onto Tunnel 6, Section Delta. The scent hit Arthur Langley first, a cocktail of damp concrete, warm ozone, and something faintly metallic, almost sweet, that prickled the back of his throat. Somewhere deeper in the dark, electricity cracked like distant foil, followed by a hum that rose and fell with no rhythm a subway line should know. Lili Kozar stepped out beside him, swinging a shoulder-rigged LED baton that washed the tunnel walls in ghostly white. Her handheld Geiger counter responded at once, soft ticks swelling into a steady chatter that dimpled the LCD readout at 12 SV H superscript 1, then 18 as they advanced. It wasn't lethal, but it was proof that someone had opened a hot source and let its breath curl through the Undercity. A trio of spook contractors huddled by a tool cart ahead, respirators dangling uselessly at their chests. When the LED beam grazed them, their faces shone with sweat, and an eerie blue corona that flickered round helmet edges like cold flame. Off the tracks, Langley called, voice echoing along the vault. Follow the wall, slow and low. They obeyed, stumbling past. As each man entered the LED halo, the blue aura vanished. Outside it, the glow reignited. A St. Elmo's fire born of heavy ion clusters, not superstition. Kozar slipped dosimeter patches onto their sleeves, barking curt instructions. Shower, chelation screening, rad film badges for 48 hours. Only once the workers disappeared up the elevator did Langley turn fully to the dark ahead. The tunnel curved leftward, spray-painted arrows still marking old evacuation routes. About 20 meters on, a branch line, the decommissioned medical waste spur, yawned like a toothless mouth. For within came the faint, steady pulse of violet-white light, fluttering against the walls in time with an unfelt breeze. "That's our Mirage," Kozar muttered, adjusting her counter to logarithmic mode so the clicks wouldn't jam. They entered single file. The spur's ballast had long since been shoveled out, leaving bare sleepers and cable trays. At knee height, Langley planted the first of 5 Wi-Fi-linked micro-Geiger pucks, each no bigger than a coin. As they crept forward, he dropped the next and the next until a dotted trail stitched the air with live dose telemetry. On his tablet, the nodes bloomed like embers, first orange then crimson, pointing them toward the brightest inferno. When the corridor widened into a storage alcove, the embers converged. Lead coffers, 6 of them, stood in a lopsided circle on the concrete. Their lids were ajar, wedged by wooden chocks that let gamma pour upward like invisible steam. Inside each, Langley glimpsed dull metallic rods bundled with electrical tape, refurbished cobalt and cesium pencils scored from hospitals and welding shops, their serial numbers hastily filed off. But it was the centerpiece that froze him. A caesium-beam tube, twin quartz bulbs fused by a bridge cavity, sat on a tripod of lab jacks. Wire leads snaked from its microwave horns to a hacked-together field coil salvaged from a junked MRI gradient. Someone had rigged the coil to a portable inverter generator humming in the shadows. Every 30 seconds a green LED pulse on its face, feeding a burst of RF through the tube. Each pulse blew a cloud of ionocs and atoms into surrounding air. Under the tunnel's humid breath, the cloud flew arrest, birthing that ethereal violet-white corona. It was beautiful, hypnotic, and a Geiger nightmare. Kozar's dosimeter chirped double time. 38 SV 8 superscript 1. 42. She swallowed. If they keep this running another hour, the dose maps will light up half the transit grid. Langley crouched at the nearest coffer. Gamma haze shimmered over the opening like gasoline on water. This isn't vandalism, this is a beacon. They're using the clock tube as a plasma lamp, seeding decayed daughters into the air, luring people with the glow. To what end? She asked. His gaze found a stack of courier boxes shoved against a far wall, each stamped with custom seals from 3 different ports. Over them someone had spray-painted in frantic capitals. Time is nothing / change is everything. Beside the slogan lay a duffel bag filled with IR transmitters, little pucks set to broadcast a master clock's rogue timing packets over Wi-Fi and BLE. Langley's stomach sank. They're building a ghost network. If enough phones sync to these transmitters, every timestamp in a kilometer radius skews by 3 minutes. And when markets open at 9 o'clock, Kozar finished, orders fire at the wrong millisecond. Chaos. He scanned the alcove for tripwires, found none. First, we quenched the source. He tossed her 2 signal flares, magnesium silicate rods packed with red phosphorus. Not the usual ChemDet's toolkit, but they burned hot enough to scramble unshielded microwave cavities and harmless to gamma-quiet lead. Langley cut the generator's cord. Silence fell, broken only by Geiger hiss. Kozar cracked a flare, thrust its white-hot core under the beam tube. Quartz blackened, then flashed opaque. Metallic clinks rang as the cavity's electrodes warped and split. Red sparks cascaded on the floor like spent stars. He wrestled each lead coffer shut, slamming latches that rang like funeral gongs. Kozar sealed them with tamper tape that changed color under neutron flux. Cheap insurance, but better than nothing. Radiation levels dipped. 20 SV 8 superscript 1. 12 7. Still hot, but no longer Mirage to lure the unwary. Langley backed toward the tunnel mouth. Tablets showing the embers fading to amber. Overhead, ventilation grills began to hum as transit control, finally reading the emergency spike. Flipped the purge fans. Clean air rushed past, tugging at their coats. Kozar wiped sweat from her brow. We still don't know who, she said. Those contractors saw no one. Langley stared at the graffiti. They saw the glow and thought a transformer arced. Whoever set this up walked away the moment it ignited. He knelt, snapping a photo of a smear boot print in cobalt dust. The sole pattern, hexagonal lugs with a missing corner, matched an impression he'd noticed back at the spectroscopy suite's loading bay. Same thief, same boots. He stood. The disgraced physicist Bauer fired last year. Maes. He wore custom hiking soles, cut to relieve a tendon injury. Kozar's eyes narrowed. Maes disappeared after Musconda probe, took access keys he forgot to return. If he's our time anarchist, he'll need a Faraday quiet space to run the next phase. Langley's thoughts leapt to the war-era bunker carved into the hills east of the river, shielded by concrete and the mountain itself. Chrono chamber, he murmured, recalling rumors of Maes' pet project. Kozar nodded. We call Haztec to extract these coffers. Then we head for that bunker. Langley toggled his radio. Control, this is Langley. Source contained. Request Level B recovery team. Post-extraction, route all signal timing anomalies to my secure line. Acknowledgement crackled back. Above ground, city lights still twinkled in careless synchronicity, unaware that for minutes, 3 and counting, time had already started to slip. As they trekked toward the elevator, Kozar glanced over her shoulder. The embers on Langley's tablet had cooled to sullen orange, but the graffiti message still glared in stark white. Time is nothing. Langley flicked off the screen. Time is everything, he muttered. and someone's about to learn that the hard way. The lift gate clanged shut, bearing them upward toward the mountain road, the bunker, and whatever warp chronometry awaited in the next dark chamber. Chapter 4, Decay-Chain Chase. Thunderheads brooded over the city hospital as Arthur Langley and Dr Lili Kozar swiped through the emergency entry sluice, dosimeters squealing at their hips. The radiopharmacy alarm had tripped 10 minutes earlier. A category, 1 lead cask, mark CS, 137/Co 60, 500 kBq, was missing from the isotope vault. Inside the shielded storeroom, stainless drawers yawned open like pulled teeth. Tamper seals fluttered from sheer hinges. On the floor lay a surgeon's scrub cap, its elastic band dusted crimson brown. Prussian-Blue stained sweat, Kozar realized. Whoever raided the cask had swallowed chelation pills in advance, a thief anticipating fallout. Langley's LED torch found a maintenance hatch pried wide at the rear of the vault. Beyond it, an old laundry chute ascended in a near-vertical shaft to the rooftop helipad. Fresh boot scuffs, the same hex lug pattern missing a corner, tracked upward through decades of lint. They climbed in silence, respirators rasping in the narrow shaft. Halfway up, Geiger pings intensified. Langley mouthed 50 SV 8 superscript 1. The source was close. The chute debouched into a supply shed beside the pad. Wind slammed the tin door open, revealing rolling fog and sterile floodlights that carved the roof into slabs of shadow. Across the pad, a lone figure knelt by a microwave relay dish, hands busy at the feed horn. A tripod stood beside him. On its tray, the stolen lead cask lay uncapped, an isotope pencil wired to a servo that aimed its gamma plume straight into the dish's waveguide. Dr Maes. His beard was longer, eyes wilder, but the limp in his right foot, tendon injury, gave him away. Langley stepped into the light. That beam will phase shift every 10 gigahertz packet in the downtown grid. Pull the rod, Maes. Maes laughed, voice raw. 3 minutes was a whisper. Now I'll stretch the city's heartbeat until it snaps. No clocks, no schedules, pure freedom. He thumbed the detonator. Electric motors whined across the roof. Identical isotope rigs pivoted on 2 farther dishes. Red LEDs tracking lock. The relay tower above the hospital was only the first. Its microwaves synchronized trading floors, air traffic radar, even ambulance dispatch. Kozar dropped to one knee, unslinging a collapsible metal blanket. Langley flicked a flare and lobbed it past Maes. Magnesium glare overexposed the relay camera, blinding its motion sensors. In that heartbeat, Kozar sprinted left, unfurling the blanket like a matador's cape. She slapped it over the nearest dish. Gamma dose on her reader fell by half. Maes snarled, yanked the isotope rod from the cask, and swung it like a baton, cobalt blue glyphs shimmering on its ceramic coating. Langley closed the distance. Metal clanged as rod met trench knife. A momentary lock. Then the rod slipped, clattering toward a rain gutter. It never hit. Kozar slid on her knees, catching it in a lead tong. Jerking into a spare pig she clipped to her bell harness. Lead door slammed. Radiation pings hiccuped and settled. Maes staggered back, pulling a second detonator. This one wired to lithium batteries taped under the remaining rigs. Langley lunged, but the trigger clicked first. Sparks sizzled. Servos seized, dishes screeched in chaotic arcs, broadcasting a spasm of untuned microwave noise across the skyline. Street lights flickered below. Traffic signals blinked amber. For 17 sickening seconds, the city's digital cadence convulsed. Then each dish whined to a stop. Kozar had yanked the generator breaker, while Langley grappled with Maes. Rain began, hissing on hot electronics. Sirens wailed in the distance, as tech vans already converged. Langley pinned Maes against the dish stanchion, cuffing wrists slick with chelation dye. Time isn't your toy, he growled. Maes coughed a humorless laugh. Time is clay. You're just afraid to shape it. Kozar checked the dosimeters. 8 SV 8 superscript 1 and falling. Safe for brief exposure. She radio command. Sources secured. 3 rigs disabled. Suspect in custody. Prepare Faraday transport cage. Below, the city lights stabilized, traffic lights snapped back to green, and phones everywhere resynchronized to the repaired cesium heartbeat, still bruised but beating true. Langley watched dawn's first glimmer bleed behind thunderclouds. One battlefield remained. The mountain bunker Maes had wired into his manifesto. He wanted the dishes as amplifiers, he told Kozar. But the bunker, that's where he'll try to bend the clock itself. She nodded toward the flashing Aztec elevator. Then we recalibrate on the move. Chrono chamber, next tick. Chapter 5, Chrono chamber. The mountain road twisted into a defile of blasted granite, where war-era bunkers still lurked like buried leviathans. At the deepest switchback, Arthur Langley guided his headlights onto a rust-scabbed blast door half swallowed by moss. Radiation signage, new, spray-painted in crimson, glared beneath the original iron stenciling. B4, Faraday compartment. Aztec teams fan out behind him, lugging metal cages and coil reels, but Langley waved them back. No RF passes threshold until we're inside, he ordered. Every phone, badge, and two-way radio dropped into a shielded lockbox. Only passive dosimeters and analog compasses remained. Dr Lili Kozar keyed the vault crank. Hydraulic pistons hissed, and stale subterranean air exhaled over them. Dank, metallic, faintly sweet with cesium hydroxide. Her Geiger counter murmured at 22 SV8 superscript 1. Hot, but survivable with minutes-long exposure. Beyond the vestibule, spiraling concrete stairs delivered them into a cavernous gallery whose walls were quilted in copper mesh. World War II engineers had built B4 to withstand both electromagnetic pulse and high-frequency espionage. Maes had found the perfect stage. At the gallery's center stood a glass-walled cell 4 meters on a side. Microwave horns ringed its roof. Banks of rare earth magnets lined the floor plates. Inside, suspended on Kevlar threads, hung the stolen caesium-beam tube. Its quartz now lacquered in cobalt blue radiation dye, its vapor cavity pulsing with ultraviolet glow. Gamma rods, 3 fresh pencils of carat 60 Co, were fixed to rotating arms that swept the tube in slow circles, bathing the hyperfine transition zone in ionizing flux. A forest of amplifiers surrounded the cell, all routed to a suitcase-sized uplink dish pointed straight as shallow waveguide carved into the bunker ceiling. Langley recognized the design, an obsolete troposcatter relay, once used to bounce signals over mountain ridges. Maes planned to inject corrupt time codes into half the region. At a desk of sawdust-scorched plywood, Maes himself hunched over a rubidium reference board, eyes glittering in the UV strobe. Cuffs from his earlier arrest dangled open. He'd sawn through them with the diamond grit edge of a dosimeter case. A tangle of coax cables trailed from the board to the cell, ready to spoof any authentic cesium standard that tried to override him. Langley stepped into the glow, voice steady. This bunker's your orchestra pit, Maes. But the overture's over. Maes straightened. Radiation chelation stain streaked his beard like rust. You stopped the relay chorus, so I play the symphony direct, he rasped. 1 to 2 isotope, 1 gamma bath, and every clock north of the river will drift by seconds an hour. Enough to crack financial ledgers, scramble GPS, shutter ATC skies. Time unmade. Kozar's dosimeter chirped higher. 35 SV 8 superscript 1. She edged toward a coil cart loaded with thick copper braid. Arthur, we killed a cavity field. Zaman quenched those transitions before the mod wave fires. Langley flicked a thumbs up, then advanced 2 paces. Listen to yourself. Maes, 10,000 pacemakers sync to network ticks. You'll freeze hearts as easily as clocks. Maes's laugh bounced off the copper mesh. Sacrifice for liberation. He jabbed a toggle. Microwave klystrons whined. Within the glass cell, the cesium vapor flared violet white. Langley acted. He heaved a portable solenoid, wound earlier for this very stunt, onto the gallery floor. Kozar slapped its power lug into a lead-acid battery pack. A bass note thrum filled the chamber as opposing magnetic fields blossomed. Inside the cell, the cesium glow guttered, its hyperfine resonance smeared by an improvised Xamon storm. Maes hurled a wrench, missed. He lunged for a breaker box, but Langley was faster, closing the distance in 3 strides. Their collision cracked the plywood table. Cokes ripped free. Sparks lit the floor, but the microwave song died mid-note. Gamma arms still spun, yet without RF modulation, they only pumped meaningless noise. Kozar, already in the cell service trench, twisted a rod shear around each Carat 60 co-pencil. With a wet clack, the rods plunged into waiting pigs of borate paraffin. She sealed the lids, radiation pings dropping to a fraction. Maes struggled beneath Langley's knee, fury bleeding into exhaustion. "You can't chain chronology," he wheezed. Langley cinched a fresh set of cuffs. "We don't chain it, we respect it." Tech poured in at last, guided by Kozar's flashlight semaphore. They draped the beam tube in a metal hood, powered down the bunker's grid, and began spooling confiscated cokes into evidence bins. Dosimeters ticked at 5 SV8 superscript 1 and falling. Background drift. The bunker settled into a hush broken only by the hiss of portable air scrubbers. Kozar stacked their gloves into a burn bag. Cesium vapor neutralized. Microwave spoof field offline. Regions NTP nodes already resyncing. Langley rose, flexing a bruise at his shoulder where Maes had landed a punch. "Time restored," he said, almost to himself. Beyond the blast door, dawn finally seeped pale gold over the valley. Phones buzzed with fresh-cut seconds. Flights resumed orderly climbs, and a million unnoticed heartbeats carried on, each tick honest again. Maes, strapped to a decking gurney, stared at the sky as though betrayed by its unbroken rhythm. Langley watched him go, feeling the mountain wind cool the sweat on his neck. "Every clock has a custodian," Kozar said, stepping beside him. "And every element a whisper," Langley answered. He gazed toward the rising sun. "Let's keep both quiet for a while." Chapter 6. Prussian-Blue Precipitate. Rain hammered the windscreen as Arthur Langley gunned the tech truck across River McBridge. Beyond the wiper's frantic sweep, the hulking silhouettes of the South Fork water treatment works loomed. Concrete clarifiers, lime silos, and a forest of settling tank catwalks haloed in sodium orange mist. On the passenger side, Dr Lili Kozar rechecked the telemetry tablet. A crimson beacon pulsed over Basin 4. Gamma dose 75 SVH superscript 1 and climbing. "Maes' last card," she muttered. "If he dumps water-soluble cesium salts here, the plant's output hits a quarter of the city before sunrise." Langley braked hard at the service gate. Tech squads fanned left and right, lugging sacks stamped potassium ferrocyanide and compressed air adductors. He unsnapped the tailgate, exposing a pallet of bright blue drums. Food-grade ferrocyanide slurry, the anode prescribed by every radio protection manual since Chernobyl. 2-stage neutralization, he ordered. Ferrocyanide feed into inlet flume, lime downstream to lock pH at 8.5. Helmets nodded. Hoses hissed to life. Kozar pointed up the hill toward the intake gallery, a glass-wall control house overlooking the primary clarifier tanks. A lone figure in a yellow slicker wrestled with a forklift pallet of drums. Even at distance, the hexlug footprints were unmistakable. "Maes," she confirmed, inside the clarifier deck. They dashed across a swaying catwalk, rain ricocheting off steel grating, geigers rattling louder with every step. Basin 4 frothed below, aerators churning brown water into cappuccino foam. At the gallery door, Langley's dose badge flashed 110 SVH superscript 1. Inside, the air stank of bleach and wet metal. 3 plastic drums, labels peeled, were already rigged with gravity taps that dripped clear solution into the suction manifold feeding the mixer well. The drip line shimmered with telltale violet, cesium chloride in near saturation. Maes stood at the last drum, wrist tethered to a detonator wired to a solenoid knife gate. One twitch and 10 liters a minute CL would gush into the plant. His face, pallid in fluorescent glare, looked older than the bunker brawl by years. "Back away from the valve," Langley called, spreading empty hands. Maes shook his head. "You cured the clock, Arthur, but time still belongs to the bold. One isotope in every kettle, every blood sample, and your precious order collapses. No barricade, no custodians." Kozar edged toward a wall-mounted fire hose rig loaded with lime slurry foam. Maes's eyes flicked, calculating, but he kept the detonator poised. Langley decided on conversation, by seconds. "Prussian-Blue," he said calmly. "You know it traps 80% of ingested caesium in the gut. City pharmacies will hand it out like aspirin. Your grand gesture dissolves into blue-stained stool. A ragged laugh, as if supply chains keep pace with panic. Sudden static bursts over the PA. Treatment flow diverted. Clarifier offline. Langley recognized Elise Bauer's voice. She had remote into SCADA from the observatory. In the control house window, indicator lamps flipped from green to red. Sluice gates ground shut, isolating basin 4. Maes' smirk faltered. "You can't bypass raw water draw without tripping." He glanced at the board, saw redundancy loops he had overlooked. Kozar seized a moment. She yanked the hose lever. A geyser of caustic white foam blasted Maes' midsection, knocking the detonator from his grip. It skittered across epoxy floor tiles, sparking but finding no circuit. Langley tackled Maes, pinning him against the dripping drum stack. The thief flailed, hand slick with ferrocyanide foam, but resisted only seconds before collapsing, breath rasping. Kozar kicked the gravity taps closed, then unlatched the sample port. The liquor inside read 36 GCSEL L superscript 1 on her quick-ion strip. Potent, but still soluble, perfect for trapping. The blue reaction. Outside, Aztec operators finished lancing 200 kilograms of ferrocyanide slurry into the inlet flume. Turbulence mixed deep azure clouds that billowed like undersea dye, instantly complexing free CS into insoluble CS Fe, CN6. In the secondary channel, powdered lime cascaded through augers, nudging pH to the sweet spot where the Prussian-Blue lattice locked tight. Langley watched from the catwalk as the water turned midnight blue before settling into murky teal. Geiger probes dunked at the outlet red background plus 2%, acceptable for municipal discharge. Kozar emerged, wiping foam from her visor. "Cesium load neutralized," she reported. "All coagulated and headed for sludge cake dryers." Langley cuffed Maes' wrists with chemical-resistant ties, then read the man his rights as rain drummed louder overhead. Maes' eyes darted from the blue water below to the distant skyline, where dawn broke peach-pink despite storm clouds. Time marched on, indifferent to his entropy dream. Aztec medics hustled the prisoner toward a decking shower. Bauer's voice crackled over handheld. Master clocked back within 3 times 10 superscript 1 seconds accuracy and holding. City operating normally. Langley allowed himself a weary smile. Order restored. Again. Kozar leaned on the rail, watching Prussian-Blue flocks swirl in the settling basin like cosmic dust. "Funny," she mused. "Out of chaos we make pigment. Artists paid fortunes for this shade in the 19th century. Let's hope the city never learns how we brewed it," Langley replied. A gust shoved rain under their collars, but the acrid CS scent was gone, replaced by the alkaline bite of lime and a faint hint of ferrocyanide iron. Sirens approached. Police for custody transfer. News vans prowling the perimeter. Langley and Kozar gathered their gear, descending steel steps toward ground level. Behind them, Basin 4 calmed to a deep cerulean mirror. Still, inert, and silent. Time once more ticked true. Epilogue, time restored. Dusk settled over Mount Tarn Observatory in soft bands of lilac and gold. From the ridge road, turnout the city glimmered, street lamps blinking in perfect cadence, transit boards scrolling to the millisecond, church bells striking 7 with mathematical confidence. For 48 anxious hours those rhythms had faltered. Now they chimed with a newfound clarity, as though the metropolis itself had taken a deep, corrective breath. Inside the frequency standard wing, The caesium-beam master clock stood behind a fresh pane of diamond-polished quartz. Its vapor cell, purged, refilled with ultra-pure metal, glowed a gentle violet each time the microwave pump interrogated the hyperfine transition. Along the control console, a single green LED pulsed every second. Steady, humble, absolute. Arthur Langley watched the pulse reflected in the window glass, while Dr Lili Kozar logged the final calibration values. Stability at 3 times 10 to minus 14, she reported, capping her pen. Better than before the sabotage. Langley allowed himself a rare grin. Time rewarded us for the tune-up. He tapped the acrylic data plaque, newly bolted to the rack. Master Cesium Standard, verified midnight UTC, post-incident sequence. A small line beneath read, Calibration crew, A. Langley L. Kozar, custodians of the Tick. Down the hall, has tech personnel wheeled out the last lead pig of confiscated sources. Prussian-Blue sludge, safely vitrified, awaited its burial in a saltstone vault. The cobalt rods were already en route to national waste storage. As they passed, the Geiger probes dangling from their belts remained silent. The corridor felt clean, electrically, radiologically, philosophically. Kozar closed her logbook. Maes is in a negative pressure ward, she said quietly. Chelation started. Psychological eval next. Langley's gaze lingered on the clock. Genius turned inside out, he murmured. If he'd aimed that brilliance at metrology instead of misrule, we'd be citing his papers, not fitting him for ankle shackles. Kozar offered a half-shrug. Physics can tempt a romantic. The idea that if you bend one constant, everything else must sing along. She tucked a stray wisp of hair behind her ear. But constants earn their name. They bite back. They stepped onto the rooftop terrace, coats billowing in the mountain breeze. Below, the river shimmered cobalt blue only in memory. Tonight its surface mirrored starlight clean and unburdened. The city's neon adverts sequenced down the waterfront in flawless synchromesh, each changeover a silent salute to the restored cesium beat. Langley pulled 2 paper cups from a vending alcove and filled them with machine tea, bitter but hot. They clinked in a quiet toast. To silent isotopes, Kozar said. And honest seconds, he replied. A shooting star etched the horizon, random, fleeting, yet precisely catalogued by the observatory's new time stamp. Somewhere an astronomer would note the microsecond it burned, confident the record was true. Kozar exhaled a long breath, that fog in the cooling air. Think the universe noticed our little scuffle? Langley sipped his tea, eyes on the steady beacon lamp that crowned the frequency wing. Probably not, he said. But the universe is vast. We guard a corner. They stood a moment longer, listening to the low thrum of the vacuum pumps inside, the distant murmur of city traffic below. Every sound precisely where it belonged. Every heartbeat in lawful order. Then, as the first proper stars emerged, they turned back toward the stairwell, ready for the next whisper the elements might dare to utter. Thank you for wandering through the quiet corridors of night chemistry. May the questions of the day dissolve like salt in still water, and may peaceful dreams form their own gentle equations. Until our next nocturnal experiment, sleep well and good night.